Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We are and welcome to tonight's school council opportunities for progress and enrichment. And go ahead with the land acknowledgement. We'll start with that. Thank you. You're muted, Nancy.
Good start. The land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis people. I also acknowledge that Toronto was covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands.
Okay. This evening's topic is school council planning events and information sessions. And this is all about strategies for school councils to organize really meaningful and impactful events. Before we go on, my name is Ricardo Francis. I'm with the Parent Caregiver Community Engagement Office, and I'm a parent caregiver community engagement worker, and I do everything school council and community liaison groups. Go ahead, Nancy.
And I'm Nancy Angevine Sands. I'm a parent and caregiver engagement specialist through with Equal Step. I'm also a vendor with the board, and I am currently contracted to support the Parent and Caregiver Community Engagement Office around school councils and engagement practices. So why do we plan events? Well, they build your school community. They enhance effective and meaningful parent caregiver engagement, and it supports your school in their quest and the council's quest for student success, which is one of the major mandates of school councils.
Yeah. So I hope you've all heard of this, our multi-year strategic plan. And what we have in terms of our presentation, our events, it should all be in alignment with the multi-year strategic plan, which is the whole idea of belonging, which is for our students and parents alike, achievement for our students and parents supporting in that achievement, thriving, and this is for both students and parents, and this is around mental health and well-being, and revitalize, which is speaks a lot to bringing us up to current technology in the 20th century.
So the thing that's important to remember through all of these webinars is that we are talking about parent caregiver engagement. And the difference between involvement and engagement is that involvement is more doing to and engagement is doing with. So it's about doing with parents to help support them to support their kids rather than doing to events that will help the school.
And before we move forward, I just want to remind everyone, there will be a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. You can also put your questions now in the Q&A as we go or as we go along. So please kindly do that, and we'll be answering your questions at the end. Thank you. Okay, so here's what where the meat about what this is all about, the events. What we really have to remember is that school council are leaders in the school, and it's through commitment, integrity, listening, humility, and a great deal of responsibility that we can continue with our school council and provide events that are beneficial to both students, staff, and parents. So I just want to remember just to point out this slide is all about school council as leaders in the school. And when we speak about the leadership, we're about parents and caregivers actually being a part of the decision making. As a school council, according to Regulation 612, is for the purpose of advocacy and can propose things to the principal in terms of ideas. And what really school council can do is really to be a contribution to policy and system change. And this is to improve and also to improve advocacy and mobilization of parents. When we speak about mobilization of parents, this is about school councils engaging with parents, especially those parents on the margins, which are those parents that tend not to be involved. And the other thing is a push towards change if needed. Sometimes change is not needed, but it's a push towards change for the betterment of the school and providing resources for the students at our school. And the other thing is, and I'm going to speak to just the ultimate goal is to have parents and caregivers being able to teach courses in terms of engagement to teachers and other parents and caregivers.
So Karen Mapp, which many of you may have heard about, is a big leader in engagement. And she says that my advice is that we see our families and community as members, as co-creators and co-producers of the excellent schools and learning opportunities that we want for all of our students. This goes back to what Ricardo was just saying about you being leaders in education and leaders in your school. So a couple of the takeaways we hope you take from this evening is the need to build trust and relationships, that we must ensure that everything we do is responsive to the cultural diversity within our schools, and that we engage our families as partners, working with them and working with collaboratively with the educators in the school to ensure that we have meaningful and effective engagement.
Okay, so this is a big thing. And, it's so difficult, especially when you're coming from a place that you've never done this. It's about planning the event. And so one of the things are what are the goals and shared outcomes, and what are and what are we going to do to actually meet those expectations of the parents? And so in order to get this, it's not just about attendance of people. We also want to get genuine feedback from a broad audience from our parents as well. And oh, sorry, my apology. And the other thing is choosing an event type, whether it's an information session, workshops, and these workshops could be workshops like about parenting. They could be about ADD, if like ADD could be about IEPs, or it could be cultural celebrations where you have you bring in a number of different families from different backgrounds, and you provide resources around culture and celebrate the different cultures that attend your school, and of course fundraising. But fundraising is specifically for the purpose of providing resources to for school council to use. So you don't just fundraise ad hoc, you fundraise in response to what the community has asked in terms of information or workshops, and you provide that. And the other thing is your audience. And so who is that audience? And that's really what when you're trying to figure out your events, who would you like to attend? And then the other thing is the budgeting and resource planning, which is a huge thing. So it could be going from like a literacy night, $300 for speakers, $150 for materials, $100 for refreshments, $50 for flyers, and maybe additional costs you could seek sponsorships. Okay, so when we talk about collaborating for success, this is about when we're working with the school's staff and community members. This success in terms of in terms of what we want to do at the school, in terms of events, presentations, the workshop, is all about building relationships. And we start those from the day one in terms of trying to meet the people in the community, meet people, the staff in the school, and get to know those people who could support you in terms of getting these events done. Because I just want to remember, we're going to speak later to this. It requires a ton of resources to get these things done, and that means you have to develop a good volunteer base. And the other thing is about assigning roles, and this is really about utilizing those abilities in your school council and beyond to complete tasks. And finally, we're talking about encouraging diverse parent voices, and this is really about casting a broader net to get more and more people involved and to the best of our ability to authentically serve them. And still on the same vein of getting to know your community. So we see knowing your audience, parents, caregivers, and staff. Once you've cast that wide net that I spoke about of diverse voices, knowing your audience becomes very easy. And from that, identifying what the interests and needs are becomes equally a little easier. And then you try and figure out what the possible barriers are to complete those tasks that you want to do as a school council in terms of those events and those workshops. And the other thing is really, and this is what, in terms of getting community feedback, just start the surveys at the beginning of the year or mid-year, again, to see if there's been any changes in terms of what parents and caregivers at your school really want. And sometimes face-to-face opportunities are really good to find out, as well as online discussions to get a clearer understanding. And this one, again, is budgeting and resource planning. Really a big thing. Because without this, the whole thing could just collapse. And what we're talking about is we're talking about the funds of knowledge. When we speak of funds of knowledge, these are the people at your school, parents and caregivers. We've got a huge amount of talent at your school. Tap into it. Try and find out those people that can help you. Even for the presentation, sometimes you don't even have to go external to get a presentation. You have parents in-house that have those skills to do them for you. And then you look at what resources are readily available. And that could be things like even the video cameras in the school or projectors in the school as well. And then the other thing are external resources. What are the individuals or businesses that are available to you that can help you in terms of planning or funding? And the other thing, fundraising is sometimes required, but not always required. And when you're going about this fundraising, what sort of methods would you use to fundraise? And I'll also ascertain as to, hey, you know what? How much do I actually need to make these things happen? And then the other big thing is outline school councils. Like we said, you're the actual leaders. So you are the ones that you're the taskmasters in terms of being able to delegate um, opportunities to various parents and caregivers. One thing about school council is a training ground. I, as part of a school council, I learned a lot. When I went to my men's group, I had a men's group that I joined, and we were doing a fundraiser in terms of all the catering and setting that thing up. All those skills I actually learned at school council. And this is budgeting continuing. And what it really is about creating an agenda. This is kind of like your agenda and time. Like this is your map that you use to really be able to see how you're going to navigate this. And as I said earlier, it's about assigning roles. So when you're assigning roles, you're thinking about who, how many, what are the needs, what are the skill sets that we need to get these things done, and then the when. And then finally, it's also looking at, hey, you know what? Once you've mapped everything out, and we're going to be discussing, I'll give you examples of how this can be done, is what are your blind spots? Really trying to think, what have we missed here? And the other thing is really about choosing the right event format. So we can have an in-person, virtual, or hybrid, which is a both, and then you can look at, you know, how would this best engage our parents? Because when we speak about using in-person, virtual, or hybrid, we also got to bear in mind, well, you know what? Depending on the time of day, how can we encourage participation? So this you can look at different avenues to be able to do that. And then the other thing is about creating interactive workshops like panel discussions, social gatherings, info nights, and Nancy's going to speak about other opportunities as well further in um, in the presentation. And the other thing is matching the format to the audience needs. One of the big things for parents and caregivers is, as we know, and that number of our people at our school, English is not their first language. So we have translation services and interpretation services that are available at the board that you can utilize for your presentation or your events. We also could provide you with spaces like our gyms, our libraries, our auditoriums, or our lunchrooms. Even some events like garden events, you can use the outside. So these are really tremendous opportunities for us to engage with our parents and caregiver and provide them with accessible resources that they can actually utilize for a minimal cost. Because you, as a school council, you know that you can permit our spaces.
Okay, so for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about some specific strategies that you can use to engage your parents and caregivers. And all of these are based on your mandate as listed in Regulation 612. And again, that mandate is to support student achievement and to make the system accountable to parents. And we know that one of the top 5 ways of supporting student achievement is to engage parents and caregivers in their children's learning so that they can support that learning at home. So let's go through some of the strategies you can use. So the first one you'll see on the left there is art, music, and or movie nights. So I've called this enriching from past practices because I want to look at things that you've probably already done And how can you just tweak them a little bit to have this engagement around student achievement? So I suspect that many of you have either had a movie night or considered having a movie night. So how can you tweak it up a little bit? Well, first of all, it would require that whoever is doing this, the committee that's working on this, to work with the teachers in your school and get them to identify some main needs for literacy development. What are some main things that they're teaching? How do they teach literacy in the classroom? What are some points that they do? So for example, maybe they work to draw out the understanding of students about the story, about the plot line, to understand the link to what they're reading here to something that they read in the past. So how can you do this? Well, you have the movie night. Everybody sits in the gym or the cafeteria and watches the movie. And then you divide into groups. And the groups can be all, one group, all kids, and then all parents in different groups, or you can have groups where the parents and the kids are together. You need to have a moderator for each group, so maybe a school council member. And what you're going to do is you are going to take those things that you learn from the educator and the teachers in your school, and you're going to give samples of how that would be. So let's say you showed The Lion King. And so one of the questions might be, who's your favorite character in The Lion King? And they could say, oh, I like Mufasa. Oh, I like Pumbaa. Okay, why did you like them? What was it about them that you liked? What do you think is going to happen after the movie ended? What's going to go on next? Is there let's link Lion King to another movie or a TV show that you've seen. What other story have you seen where the characters have had to work together to solve a problem? So these are all questions. And then as a group, you all answer the questions and talk about the story. And then what the parents are learning is skill sets that they can take home. So when as a family, they sit and watch a movie or they watch a TV show or they read a book together. Now the parents know some questions that they can ask their kids about the story. And now the kids are building those skill sets so that when they go back into the classroom, they have a better understanding or a better confidence in their ability to answer those questions. Music nights, how can you do that? Well, you could invite parents and caregivers to participate in the music night, perhaps even to perform on an instrument that maybe isn't common in your school, or to perform with the choir or the band or the orchestra, and just bringing you all together. And then school events, which you see on the right-hand side. Whenever you have a school event, a curriculum night, interview night, music night, art night, the school council should have a table right at the front door. And that's where you're letting everybody know, hi, we're the school council. Here's what we've done for you. It's a good opportunity to survey your parents. What sort of things do you need to support your kids at learning at home? What questions do you have? What would you like to learn? What kind of training could we offer for you? This is a great time for you to, one, let the parents and caregivers in your community know that the school council is there, that we're here to support you. This is how we're doing it. And to have the parents and community share what they bring to the table. And so that could be working with your, for example, on curriculum night or interview night, working with your teachers again to give them ideas about how they could learn about their parents and about the parents and caregivers in their classrooms, and how they could learn about who they are and what's important to them and what skill sets they bring. So that's just a couple of ideas about how you can enrich some of the past practices that you've been doing. Next.
I'm just going to say this is one of the things that I got from this, Nancy, as you were speaking, was also you getting opportunity to build those relationships, both with the kids, with your the your students, as well as building those relationships with staff and more parents and caregivers. Next
Yeah,
slide.
thank you, Ricardo, because I think as we've said in previous presentations, engagement begins with relationships. If you don't have relationships, both with the parents and caregivers in the community and with the teachers in your school, you can't have meaningful engagement. And so these all of the strategies I'm talking to with you this evening are about building those relationships. So next, in this one, we're going to talk about things that you can do to support learning. And the first one, again,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that would help.
here's some examples. So some of the students in your school will have IEPs or individual education plans. These are for children that have learning exceptionalities, and they have to have sometimes special plans or ideas set up for how the teachers are going
Or
to work them
resources.
throughout the year, what resources they're going to use. It's a good idea to offer a presentation or a workshop for the parents of students with IEP. I'm always surprised how many parents don't understand what an IEP is, how it works, what their rights are around IEPs. So you could ask a special education teacher in your school to make a presentation on this subject. You could ask for a representative from the board's special education advisory committee to come out and make a presentation. Or you could go out to community groups. For example, a group like Extend a Family. Extend a Family is a nonprofit organization that works with children with exceptionalities and disabilities. Somebody that come in and have a training session for those parents. And there may be other things that you've heard from parents that they're not getting support for. So, for example, bullying. Maybe you want to have a thing, just a workshop or a learning session just on bullying, and you bring somebody into that for that. Or we're hearing a lot now about wellness and mental health, bringing someone in to talk about that specific topic. Remembering that there are resources at the board that you can call upon to come in to speak. They are free. You might want to, give them a little tiny little like gift card to Tim Hortons or something to say thank you. At the end, you can't pay them, us TDSB staff, but something like that. So this is when you reach out to your parents in your surveys that I spoke of earlier and find out what their needs are. Next.
Actually, and the other thing for the individual education plans, it's also a great thing for all parents to attend, the parents and caregivers to attend, because you also learn different learning strategies to help your students at home.
Okay, so understanding the curriculum and assessment and evaluation. Too often, and I'm talking at elementary school and at high school or middle school, if there's middle school, is as parents, we don't understand what the curriculum that's being offered, and we don't understand how our kids are assessed and evaluated. These can be offered at the elementary level. You could offer a workshop on literacy, or you could offer a workshop on numeracy. I would suggest offering one workshop just for the primary level students, parents and caregivers, another workshop for the junior level, another one for the intermediate level. And again, you could bring your teachers in and work with them ahead of time about what are you looking for, what are you hoping to do, and then also for bringing specialists in from the board. And of course, at high school, you could do this around different subject areas. So you could do one just on math or literacy or language skills, anything that you want. Now, what I would suggest is when you're working with whoever is going to present these workshops, is that they actually bring some, it's not just a lecture session, all right? It's a learning session. So bring some of the work that the kids are going to have to do in the classroom, and the parents, first they hear what it is and what's going on, and then they actually do the work. Now they've kind of learned how to do this. And I'll give you an example. I heard of this one I thought was great. And it was, I believe it may have been either an intermediate or high school level. And they were talking about rubrics. And we all know about rubrics. You assess at level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Parents oftentimes don't understand that. So they talked about the rubrics, they talked about what was expected at each level, and like what would a level 3 essay look like? What would a level 4 essay look like? And then they divided them into groups and they gave them an essay. And they said, okay, as a group, we want you to grade this essay. Now, the essay was a level 3 essay, which was the average level, what would be expected of the students of this. Every single group assessed it at a level 1 or a level 2. So the parents were tougher than the teachers, but the parents also learned this is what's needed to achieve at each level. And we don't have to be too hard on them. Now, how do they support this at home? They don't write the kid's essay. But what they do when the child says, oh, I have to write an essay, I have to write a 5-paragraph essay, for example. Okay, let me see it when you've done. And let me see the rubric too, please. And then they look at it and they read it and they say, do you think that you reached a level 3? And why do you think you reached a level 3? And they could read it and say, I'm not sure. I'm wondering, like here it says for a level 3, you have to show why the character is important in the story. And I'm not, do you think that you've done that? They're not there to grade their child's essay, but they're there to understand how their child is going to be assessed and evaluated. And I'll quickly give you an example that happened with one of my kids when they were in high school. They had the head of the math department come in, and he was talking about how the kids were assessed on their math scores. Now, this, I will admit, was probably at least 20 years ago. Yes, I'm that old. It was probably about 20 years ago. And I can't say whether they're being assessed the same way, but at that time they were assessed on knowledge and communication and initiative and one other thing I can't remember. What I came away with is understanding is that I could say to my son when he had a math test, and for example, this is the example is given in geometry. If they, or no, let's say in just multiplication, they were asked to do something and they was 6 centimeters. Now this is high school, but bear with me, I'm giving a simplistic answer. 6 centimeters times 8 centimeters equals 48 centimeters. He could get the answer wrong. He could say 6 times 8 equals 30, but if he put centimeters in, he would get part marks for communication. That was really important to me as a parent, to be able to go home and to reiterate to my kids, to my son at the time, that don't forget you are being marked on these 4 things. And don't forget to put in all of the parts that you want so that even if you don't get the right answer, you're going to get part marks. So it's little things like that, it's little hints for parents that they can reiterate to their kids to help support them to get ready for the work that they're doing. Next one. And do the next one too, please.
Okay, well, both think. There you
So
go.
your school statement of needs, which I'm sure you all know is something that you should be looking at every year. That what type of what are you looking for in a principal and a vice principal, in case your principal or vice principal are transferred or retire. And the school improvement process is the process that schools go through every year, to look at areas that need improvement, areas where they can move forward. And it's in, I'm going to forget them all, Ricardo: academics, well-being, equity, and I believe
Mental health.
Indigenous affairs.
Yeah.
It's a requirement of both the ministry and the board that school councils have meaningful input into the development of the school improvement process. And it's a requirement of the board that school councils review and submit their school statement of needs every year. So these are important ways for you as a council to ensure that the system is accountable to parents and that parents are making meaningful contributions to improve student achievement at the school. So how can you do these things? So I'm going to quickly give you a couple of ideas. I'm going to talk about the SIP. This is ideas for doing the SIP. You could use some of them for the school statement of needs as well. The first one is during school events. If you have a curriculum night, a music or arts night, when you have parent-teacher interviews, is to set up in different areas a listening circle where the parents know they can come at this time and sit, and we're going to talk about the school improvement process. And it may be only one aspect of it. We're going to talk about how does well-being need to be looked at in this school? What sort of things could we do for that? You could take a hallway that's not busy or a separate classroom, take the experience paper or big pieces of paper, stick them up and ask a question at the top. How do you think, how could we improve well-being at the school? Do you have any concerns about equity within the school? This isn't a place where you can complain. This is a place for parents to suggest where there could be some improvements made. And you just have felt pens and let people come in on their own and write down their answers. You would need to have somebody there to explain what if the questions aren't clear or what the process is. Another way to do it is to have on at a council meeting specifically aimed at the school improvement process. So the principal would present on what the SIP is, how far they've moved along, what the teachers are thinking, where areas they're looking at, and then provide an opportunity for discussions. You might want to break out into groups to talk about different areas and come back and report back. You might want to leave it and ask, have a discussion group, but ask the parents to send ideas back to the council by a certain cutoff date. And finally, the other way that you can be involved in school improvement process is to appoint some parents to the school's SIP committee. I would suggest more than one, maybe two, probably not more than three. And these are people who can meet during the day when the school SIP committee meets, and they can talk about these things. They can bring forward their ideas, but they also have to bring back to the council what they're hearing. Okay, that's that part. Has a lot. One more. So,
okay, sorry, Nancy. Just as a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please jot them down in the Q&A. We'll be answering them at the end of the presentation. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
That's okay, thank you. So how can we build relationships? We've looked at doing some ideas based on stuff that you've already done. We've done some ideas on how you can support learning at home. And now we're going to look at building relationships. All right, so here's a couple of ideas. My son early is a teacher, and early on in his career, he taught at a school up in Nunavut. And I went to visit him up there, and I was really taken with a lot of things that they did. The community was very much involved in the schools. And every Friday night, and I'm not suggesting you do this every Friday night, but every Friday night they would have a dinner in the auditorium, in the gym, and every family brought their own meal. All right, the council didn't supply it, the school didn't supply it. Every family brought their own meal, but it was an opportunity to sit with each other, to eat with each other, to break bread with each other, and to share some time, for the kids to be together, for the parents to be together, just talk and just have fun and see what everyone was doing, what they were up to. I found it fascinating to look at, because there were a lot of teachers from the South who had come up to Arviat to teach, to look at the things that they ate compared to what the Inuit ate, and shared with each other. It was a wonderful night, and it was a real opportunity to build a community. Doing it here, you also have to be cognizant of the cultural norms of your diverse community. For example, Ramadan will be coming up in a couple of weeks. And so you would want to work with your Muslim community, for example, to see how would this work, or when would be a good way to do it, or is this something that we have to leave until after Eid? So that's just an example of working with your communities to understand what are their norms, what are their practices, what can you as a council do in this event to make everyone feel comfortable and welcome. The next night is a games night. As a council, you could go out and you could buy some board games. You might even, I don't know if this would work, go to the manufacturers and ask would they make a deal for you. And also then to allow those games to be signed out by families to borrow for a night or two and then come back. This is another opportunity for you to speak to your teachers ahead of time and discuss what skills would be learned at each of the different games, and then to make that known to your teachers. If you're playing Monopoly, literacy, you got to read the cards. Planning in where to go, working with each other, math, in knowing how much you have to pay for a particular street or for a house, different things like that. And then letting, even if the parents walk away with a hard copy of this is what skill sets are learned by the different games that you've played this evening. Some other ideas are to have discussion clubs or debates. Years ago, my son had a debate with his dad over who was a better musical artist, the Beatles or Eminem. And they each went away and they wrote out, and you can guess who took which artist, and they wrote out what their points were, and then in front of the rest of the family they had to debate back and forth who was the better artist, and then the rest of the family voted on who was the winner. You could do this at a family night. You could do it as part of a dinner night where they divide up and it's individual families. This is the debate you're going to do it. Or you could have an organized debate where you had parents on one side, and parents and caregivers on one side, and students on the other. And they were given their debate topic. They had to go away and work out their arguments and then come back and debate, and then the audience would decide who was the winner. A discussion club, this is more, it could be any number of things. It could be like a listening circle where you just get together. It could be at the last half of a council meeting. There's a topic for discussion, and you could divide into groups and talk about the topic, or you could have a bigger one moderated very carefully, of course. But I wanted to share with you the idea that I learned from an educator in Britain. It started with a high school he was the head teacher for, and that's principal in Britain. And there were some parents that came to him with a problem that they had, that was something they didn't like that was happening at the school. And he thought, well, all right, fair enough. Let's see if you can come up with some solutions. And he formed a discussion group that was made up of parents and teachers. And they took that topic, and it took them a couple of months, but they worked it through together and they solved the problem. And then the parents, now I always talk about what's in it for the teachers. Here's what's in it for the teachers. The parents went out and did the PR for the school, in that this is the problem, this is the solution that we made. And then when other issues came up, it became well known within that school that it could go to the parent-teacher discussion group, and other issues came up, and it would go to the discussion group, and the discussion group would talk about it, and the discussion group grew too as they went along. But it was a way for the parents and caregivers and the teachers in the school to come together as collaborators, to work together to solve issues at the school. After 6 or 8 months, somebody new to the school came and said, well, I don't like that. And the parents said, we don't do that here. Here we work together to solve problems and find solutions. And finally, working groups or committees. I think we'll be discussing this at another webinar webinar we'll be doing for you in the future. But these are a good way for, they're set up by the school council, a committee. It could be a budget committee. It could be a volunteer committee. It could be a committee for a specific activity or event that you were going to do. Anyone can sit on that committee. It has to have a council member as part of the committee, but any parent and caregiver or teacher within the school can sit on that committee. And that's where the hard work is done. That's where you do the research and the arguing, and how are we going to do this? And then you come to the council and you make the suggestion, this is what we think should happen, and then the council votes on it. So these, and also as part of that might also be affinity groups. Affinity groups are groups of people who come together who share a common identity or goal. So it could be LGBTQ, it could be cultural groups who come together and work and build relationships together and support groups together. That's just some ideas to get you started on things that you can do as a council.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just going to go to the next slide. But before I go there, whenever we're bringing any food or snacks or anything into the school, we got to remember things like religious things, halal or kosher, vegan. So and food allergies. So if there is something that you're bringing into the school that you're concerned about, label it so the families know, or the individuals having it know what's in it. Next slide. So next slide. Oh boy. So this is about, we're talking a lot about building capacity. And now we're going to speak about promoting inclusivity and ensuring that we're able to make things accessible. When we're talking about the accessibility, we're not just talking about, we're talking more in regards to those communication channels. We've got to get the information out. So we can send out flyers, emails, utilize Facebook, Twitter to promote our events, our school website, and school messenger. They're all excellent ways of getting the word out. The other big thing as well is, we just said it earlier, we have schools where multiple languages are spoken. So we utilize the translation services and interpretation services that are available at the board, as well as the American Sign Language uh, resources to accommodate all those diverse needs. And the other thing, in terms of um, getting people out, which is so hard to get people to come to think, because there's so many things happening in people's lives. We really have to think about the timing, when it's going to happen, different times of the day. Like when I was working in the schools, and we would have some events. Sometimes I do it in the morning. There's a lot of parents that are available to you in the morning. Some are available at lunchtime, and then later in the evening. People have very busy lives. The other thing in terms of trying to um, schedule things is also, if you create a hybrid where you have people online and in person. I always like the in person, especially post COVID, is really important that increases people's access to join the things you want to do. And the big thing for me is using students to spread the word. You give students, you tell the students to go home and say, "Mommy, we're doing this really great thing tonight," or "Daddy, we're going to do the thing," or whoever, "We're going to be doing this great thing tonight." They're great, and they don't stop. Some kids will just keep doing those reminders. And when I speak about those reminders, that's the other thing. We send things out. You have an event, a month ahead, you send out one notification. 2 weeks in, you send out another notification, and then coming closer to the event, and just pre-event again, send out the notification. People forget. The other thing you can also do, if possible, for certain things, you can set it up on the Google Calendar. You can set it up on the Google Calendar, send it out to your parents and caregivers and guardians, and then as soon as they click up, it loads into their calendar. So they don't even have to go. It saves them a step. So those are all opportunities to really promoting that a greater inclusivity, and that's it. Okay, my next
Uh,
slide. Oh,
Ricardo,
sorry, go back.
Ricardo, can I just suggest something? Sorry, I saw this. I thought it was great. Works in elementary school is you create a flyer, it's hard copy. You create a flyer, but you leave a space in the top corner. And then you go into every classroom, working with the teachers, you go into every classroom, like Ricardo said, you talk about, what's coming up. We're doing this great thing. We're going to have a workshop, and it's going to be talking about bullying. And we all need to know about that, and we want to help kids. And what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to draw a picture on your sheet of bullying, of draw a picture of what of about the event, and then take it home to your parents. Now you've got something going home to the parents that their kid created, and now it becomes a little bit more meaningful to them. That's all.
Wow, that's a great one. I like that idea. The other thing that I forgot to speak to, we're talking about the flyers, is also to put QR codes on the flyers as well, so parents can you get further details that they need. And the other big thing, and I'm surprised they didn't mention it here, is also include the opportunity for child minding. A lot of parents, if they don't have the child minding available, they can't come. So really look and child minding as well. School council can arrange for that as well, through the parent caregiver community engagement office. Okay, so this is a really good, and this is really what we've been speaking about. The goal is to really create a welcoming and engaging experience for all attendees. And how you do this is by reaching out to those individuals in your community. And one of the things is inviting them to our events, making them feel welcome, and that's why it's so important to have the language services interpretation available for parents, so they don't feel that they're not a part of it. Also, make it very clear to everybody that you want everybody to join with us, and they're all welcome. And by doing that is by creating an environment towards there's no hierarchy. Everybody is treated alike, and we're welcoming. And that, in terms of that welcoming and being authentic around that, it's not just when they come to an event. You're doing it on a daily basis. Okay. Oh, blank slide? No. Okay. Okay. So our next slide is about engaging participant and encouraging interaction. And this is really kind of like when I think about this all the time about engaging participants and encourage interaction, what always comes to mind is commercials. And when I think about the TV commercials, is what they do and how innovative they are in creating things. And we don't all have those skill sets, but we do have those skill sets. If we pull the resources from our school communities, there will be individuals that are creative. And so one of the things we spoke about, and this is what going back to what Nancy spoke, is about making events very interactive. The Q&A opportunity, the breakout discussions, the activities, the game nights, the gaming, and that sort of thing. And then the strategies for those parents who are less engaged to kind of like bring them out. So if you're having a game night, you for those parents who don't want to interact directly, you can say you could give them an activity to do that they can contribute later in the process of that game night. And the other thing too is having student involvement. As you know, when you're the best way to get parents and caregivers out is to have an event where their children are participating. So get those parents, give those students roles, and what it also allows for, where we're talking about leadership at the parent level, but also giving students leadership roles, and I'm even talking about in the primary grades, the elementary grades. It's so when you give a child an opportunity to lead on something or to participate on something, it's so great for them, and it builds their character and makes them feel welcome as well, and also builds their self-esteem. And find that one of the things that is, we do these great things. And one of the things we really want to do is kind of like evaluate what that success means. And that is by really reaching out to those people that we provided those resources to, and those that we didn't really have the opportunity to participate in, and find out why they weren't able to participate. And I'm having one of the ways is using surveys after the event, providing opportunity for informal feedback. That could be you could have a discussion after the event. Hey, how'd you like it? Is there anything that we missed, or did you have any ideas, or just what you loved it? Great. And the other thing is just we want to really look at. It's not just always about the attendance. It's also about what the impact is. And when we speak about these game nights or these curriculum nights, is we want to find out what the parents and caregivers actually took away from that event. Like, did they learn something from it? So it's so just looking at what they learned so that we can know for our next sessions what we could do differently.
And can I just add to that? I want you all to remember too, if you planned something and it wasn't as successful as you hoped it was, it doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It might have been a good idea, you just needed to tweak it a little. So part of it, part of gathering the feedback is then looking at it and thinking, where could we make this better? We only got 10 people out and we were hoping to get 40 out. What do we need to do to get 40 out? I know of a high school in Scarborough, and a number of years ago they decided they were going to do, I think they call it a parent university, and it was on a Saturday, and they were going to have different things for parents to come and learn some of the stuff that I was talking about tonight on strategies. And I think the first year they had 25, 50 parents come out. The third year, they had 300 parents because they knew it was a good idea. They just needed to tweak it, and they also needed word of mouth to get out.
And yeah, and really, you actually spoke to my last bullet, so making improvement for future events, and that's exactly what Nancy just spoke to. And you know what? And if it's working, don't fix it. Just keep it going. Okay, next slide is okay. Um, and the final thing is next steps and to keep the engagement that you've already established going. And that's building on the momentum that you've already created. And so you could do that by doing monthly meetups to keep the conversation going around those activities. And those meetups can be informal. They do not have to be part of your school council. This could be, as we spoke earlier, this could be done by one of your committees or your working groups. And the other thing is following up with your attendees through email or again through word of mouth, just thanking them for attending. Um, um, and you can also do that by school messenger. You can send that on school, and then giving them opportunities and ways for them to get involved. One of the things too that I want to really focus on is the whole idea of the more parents that you can get to participate in your event makes those jobs easier. Putting an event together, a workshop together, is a tremendous amount of work. So you can get individuals beyond the school council to participate. That's a great opportunity. And then the other thing that I spoke about early is really about the whole idea of the continuity of your school council, and that is trying to encourage future leaders in your school council to take on the leadership role of the executive, and that would be your co-chair, your chairs, your secretary, and your treasurer, and the membership as well, who are equally as important to really help with the continuity of your school council and allowing it to grow and thrive. And finally, we've talked. I've talked a lot about, and Nancy, I've talked about all about how to go about the process. But we're going to provide you with examples of checklists, which we will also be provided to you on our website when we'll be providing you a QR code. But if you just want to look at it just you can Google it, TDSB School Councils, and you'll reach our website. So here's the checklist. So you can see here, and I'm not going to go through them all, but it's just creating the agenda, finding out who your speakers are, finding out your volunteers, your helpers, your decorations, the flyers, the posters, invitations, the signage that you need to use. Need to use. Remember, when you're making the signage, specific fonts are they're AODA compliant, and now I can't remember what the AOD replies to, but it's a form of sharing information in a way that all can read it. And then we're talking about the snacks, refreshments, uh, uh, um, pizza and other things, and really keeping in place the allergies. Then you talk about the event logistics, like tables, chairs, microphones, projector screens, Wi-Fi access, all that. And we again talking about interactive um, activities and engagement activities. One of the things too is even at we because we didn't speak to this earlier, icebreakers, great things to have at a school council meeting, just to kind of like um, um, to lighten the mood and really have an opportunity for one another to interact. And then finally, it's a follow up materials, event photos. Now again, if you're taking photos, you have to get permission for the participants before you do such. But those are things that are also away, and then just really highlight the takeaways around that. And then the big thing at the end is to celebrate all that you've accomplished. If you don't even get the numbers that you want, it's still you've done it. The work is done, and it took a lot to get yourselves there, and it took a lot to get there. And you've got to really pat yourselves on the back and really say, "Job well done." And now we're going to move into the question and answers, the Q&A, and I'm just going to stop the recording, and we're just going to go to
Okay,
the.
so I'll read them and we can
Okay.
share the
Yeah.
answers. So the
Yeah.
first one is, our translation service is free? Some schools don't have enough funds and council to pay for this.